There's a special kind of disrespect that comes in neon orange at 6 in the morning, the kind that slaps itself across your driver's side window before the sun is fully up and then dares you to stay calm about it. And when I saw that sticker on my work van, I didn't just choke on my coffee. I had one of those out-of-body moments where you can actually feel your blood pressure loading like a nail gun. You know, that suburban silence right before everybody starts pretending they're normal. That was the soundtrack: sprinklers, hissing birds doing their little corporate morning meeting, hidden doorbell cameras probably recording me in my boots and old hoodie standing there on my porch with a mug of black coffee strong enough to melt chrome. I love that hour usually. It's the only time my phone isn't ringing with somebody panicking because they opened a wall and found out the thing they wanted removed was in fact holding up the house. I'm a general contractor. My phone is less a phone and more a public emergency siren for bad decisions. So I step outside in Oak Haven Estates, take one breath of cold Pennsylvania air, wet mulch, fresh-cut grass, and that faint scent of people with too much free time. And I look at my driveway expecting to see my van, my beast, my glorious ugly 2018 Ford E-Series utility rig, paid off, dusty, dented, and carrying about 80 grand in tools that keep my mortgage paid and my fridge full. And there it is, except now it's wearing a radioactive dinner plate on the window. Not a note, not an envelope, a decal, a full-blown adhesive war crime. Neon orange, not safety orange, not construction cone orange. I mean retina punch, nuclear warning, you can see this from space orange. And I knew immediately what kind it was, too. The cheap adhesive kind from the devil's own office supply closet, the kind that comes off in 1,000 gummy flakes and takes a razor blade solvent and your last ounce of patience to remove. I walk down the driveway slow because when I get really mad, I don't move faster, I move quieter. Boots crunching, coffee in hand, heart doing drum solos. I get close enough to read it, and there it is in big black letters. Violation notice, unauthorized commercial vehicle towing imminent, 24 hours. I just stared at it for a second like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into a joke. Then I heard a voice from my left, smooth and smug like it had been polished with HOA dues. Actually, it's entirely appropriate if you've read the updated bylaws. Kevin. Of course it was Kevin. Kevin, our HOA president, standing exactly on his side of the property line. Like the grass itself had legal boundaries he was emotionally attached to. Polo shirt tucked into khaki shorts at 6:05 a.m., loafers, clipboard glasses, that same smug little smile. The man looked like he was auditing daylight. Kevin is the type of guy who irons jeans and uses the phrase community aesthetic without irony. "Morning, Kevin," I said, and my voice was so calm it scared me. He taps his pen on the clipboard like he's a district attorney. "Glad you found the notice." "Found it." I point at my window. "Kevin, you slapped a radioactive pizza box on my truck." "It's not a truck," he says. "It's a commercial transport unit under section. It's a Ford van, Kevin." We go back and forth right there in the driveway, him citing sections and subparagraphs like scripture me, trying not to throw my coffee mug through his pillar. He tells me the bylaws were updated last month. No vehicles with utility boxes, ladder racks, visible signage. Anything that looks commercial can be parked in driveways overnight anymore. They must be garage kept or stored off-site. I looked at my garage, then I looked at my van, then back at Kevin. "Kevin, the van is 9 feet tall. My garage door is 7 feet. What exactly is your plan here?" I shave the roof off and pray. He shrugs like he's discussing throw pillows. Says there's a storage lot 5 miles away by the highway, very reasonable rates. That's when I really lost all respect for the man, because you can tell when somebody has never had to get out of bed at 2 a.m. and drive through freezing rain to stop a burst pipe from turning a basement into an aquarium. He called me a handyman, and I had to explain to him slowly, like he was a child holding a live wire, that I'm a licensed general contractor and my van isn't a hobby prop. It's my livelihood. He didn't care. He said the van was an eyesore. Said it hurt property values, said they were trying to maintain rustic elegance. Rustic elegance in a subdivision full of vinyl siding and fake brick veneer. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee, and that's when his face tightened. He tells me the clock started at 5:45 when he applied the decal himself, said it with pride, by the way, and if the van is still there the next morning it gets towed. Then he checks a box on his clipboard like he just ended corruption. I told him if he touched my truck we'd have a problem the bylaws didn't cover. He got excited at that, like he wanted me to cross a line so he could write me up for aggressive language toward board members. I could see him trying to make it a moment. But no, I kept it clean. I told him it wasn't a threat, it was a promise of litigation. He waddled back to his giant faux southern porch with those ridiculous white pillars out front, and I stood there in my own driveway shaking with caffeine and rage staring at that sticker and thinking, okay, Kevin. First thing I did was scrape that decal off the window. Took forever. Every little strip was like a meditation in vengeance. Scrape. This man thinks he controls how I make a living. Scrape. This man thinks because he's bored and retired he gets to touch my property. Scrape. This ain't about a van anymore. I went to work, but my brain wasn't on the basement job in West Philly. It was on Oak Haven. At lunch, I sat down with a hoagie and pulled up the HOA portal on my phone like I was accessing enemy intel. Downloaded the bylaws, 140 pages of mulch shades, grass heights, dog restrictions, holiday decoration, windows, all the usual suburban tyranny. Section 44.2 was exactly what Kevin said. They had patched the loopholes. Commercial appearance mattered, not registration. On paper, I was boxed in. But contractors don't survive by respecting the first obstacle. We survive by finding the load path nobody else sees. So I kept reading. Buried in a totally different section, structural integrity and liability, I found Section 12.4, the HOA and its agents can't perform enforcement actions including towing or removal if doing so creates a direct foreseeable risk of structural damage to a residence or permanent fixture. In those cases, mediation is required. I read that line twice. Then I looked up at a photo of my house and zoomed in on the property line. My driveway runs real close to Kevin's place. Like if you sneeze while edging, you're technically on his side close. And his giant front porch, the thing he's weirdly proud of, is supported by these huge white pillars right near the line. That's when the smile happened. Not a nice smile. Not a sane smile. The kind of smile you get when the game changes in your head and suddenly you can see the whole board. Next morning, right on schedule, a tow truck shows up at 5:45. Not a flatbed, an old snatch truck. Driver gets out, big guy named Tiny Beard, full of secrets vest, older than my apprentice. Kevin is already outside, practically glowing, pointing at my van like he discovered contraband. Take it away, Kevin says. Tiny asks if I'm the owner. I say, yep. He asks if I'm moving it. I say, nope. Kevin starts shrieking about the violation. Tiny looks tired, like he just wants breakfast and a quiet life. He tells me not to make it hard and asks me to move the van. I tell him I can't, and I show him the front wheels cranked hard and explain if he drags this loaded rig backward with a standard wrecker, he risks tearing up the drivetrain. 8,000 pounds fully loaded. He breaks it, I sue. Personally. Tiny checks the setup, does the math, and nods. Says he needs a flatbed and dollies, not a snatch. Kevin turns the color of uncooked liver and starts barking for a second truck. Tiny says dispatch sent him for a passenger van, not a heavy commercial rig, and if Kevin wants a flatbed, he can call it in and wait 4 hours. Then he leaves. Kevin stands there looking like somebody canceled Christmas. I smiled and said strike one. He threatens extra fees, says he'll fine me $500, says tomorrow at 8 a.m. The heavy-duty unit will be there and my van will be gone. I told him sincerely to go right ahead. Then I looked at his porch pillar, and I made a phone call. Now here comes the twist, because every good neighborhood war needs a wild card. My wild card was Sparky, a welder I've known for years. Great fabricator, questionable impulse control, heart of gold, probably on a watch list somewhere. I told him I needed a big transport chain, an uncuttable lock, and a portable welder. He didn't even ask if I was serious. He just said, "What time?" By late afternoon, Sparky rolled up with a chain, rated for tying down bulldozers, and a lock that looked like it belonged on a prison gate. He brought Santi 2 concrete guy toothpick in his mouth, mysterious background, incredible meatballs. Those are the best kinds of friends, by the way. Skilled, loyal, and just a little dangerous. We did it professionally, that's important. Looped the grade 70 chain through the van's rear tow point, welded the link closed so nobody could slip it off. Ran the chain across the little strip of grass to Kevin's beloved porch pillar. Wrapped the base tight, but here's the beauty. We put heavy rubber matting underneath so we wouldn't scratch the paint. No cosmetic damage, no holes, no drilling, no vandalism, just secure anchoring. Cure. Then came the lock. Massive hardened shutter lock with a shrouded shackle bolt cutters couldn't get a bite on it. I snapped it shut and that heavy clunk echoed like church bells. My van was now legally parked on my property and physically married to Kevin's house. Sparky stepped back, wiped his hands, and said, "That is art." Then I took the key, walked to the storm drain at the end of the cul-de-sac, looked toward Kevin's twitching blinds, and dropped it right through the grate. Plink. Gone. Next morning, I set up on my porch like I was tailgating. Coffee donuts, lawn chair, flannel boots. Just waiting. At 7:55, the cavalry shows up, big flatbed support truck lights flashing. Kevin comes out wearing a blazer. A blazer. For a towing. Lead operator Rick, built like he chews sheet metal for fun, walks to the back of my van, stops, follows the chain with his eyes, and goes real quiet. "There's a chain," he says. Kevin waves a hand. "Cut it." Rick straightens up and says, "Sir, this is grade 70 transport chain. I'm not cutting that with what I've got. And you might want to look at what it's attached to." Kevin storms over, sees the chain wrapped around his own pillar, sees the rubber matting, sees the lock, and I swear I watched his soul leave his body for half a second. He starts yelling at me to unlock it. I tell him I can't. Lost the key. Sewer grate. Clumsy me. He tells Rick to pull anyway. Rick gets serious, then professional serious. Explains that if he winches that van and the chain goes taut, the porch comes with it. Says it plain, I pull this truck, I pull your front porch down. And that right there was the moment. The silence after that line, you could hear every sprinkler on the block. Kevin starts sputtering about Section 12, and I just sip my coffee and say, "Yep, Section 12.4. No towing if there's a foreseeable risk of structural damage. Looks like we're in mediation territory now." He called the police. Officer Miller shows up 20 minutes later, old school cop face like he's seen every stupid human argument possible and a few new ones. Kevin is foaming, talking about vandalism, trespass, destruction of property. Miller walks. The scene, looks at the van, the chain, the lock, the pillar, then looks at me. "Your van?" "Yes, sir." "Your chain?" "Yes, sir." "Your porch?" "No, sir, that's Kevin's." He asks if there's damage. Kevin admits no, not really. Rubber matting protected the paint. No drilling, no holes, no injury. Van's on my driveway. Miller rubs his temples and says the most beautiful words in the English language when you're dealing with an HOA tyrant. This is a civil matter. Kevin lets out a noise only dogs and demons can appreciate. Miller explains it to him like he's 5. If police cut the chain, they're destroying my property. If Kevin cuts it, same problem. If tow truck pulls and rips off his porch, that's on him and his contractor. No crime. Just 2 grown men in a suburban blood feud with paperwork. As he walked away, Miller passed me and muttered, barely moving his lips, "Nice chain." I nearly lost it. The standoff lasted 3 days. 3 glorious, ridiculous days. Tow company charged Kevin a wasted trip fee. Locksmith came out, saw the lock, said he'd need grinding and a liability waiver. Kevin refused to sign because he was terrified of scorching his precious white pillar and vinyl siding. Fire chief got called for hazard and basically laughed on arrival. Neighbors started doing slow drive-bys. People I'd never met gave me thumbs-ups. Somebody left a 6-pack on my porch with a note for the resistance. And here's the thing I realized in that stretch the lesson part, I guess. Power doesn't always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like a clipboard, a smile, and a rule book used on the wrong person. And people like Kevin get bold because they assume working folks are too tired to push back, too busy making a living to read the fine print. But if you push a man at the point where his labor meets his dignity, his tools, his truck, his way of feeding his family, don't be shocked when he learns your rules better than you do. On day 4, the white flag arrived wearing a $400 suit. HOA lawyer Henderson comes to my door looking like he bills by the sigh. Says the board wants resolution. Says Kevin will drop the fines and the tow order. I tell him that's cute, but I still have a chain problem and no key. He offers to pay for professional removal if I agree to use the storage lot forever. I said no. Then I gave my counter permanent variance for my work vehicle. In writing. Signed and notarized, I keep parking in my driveway, and they can pay to cut the lock off my chain. He starts with, "That's highly irregular." And I tell him what's highly irregular is an HOA president whose porch is being held hostage by a 40-35. Oh! I told him, if that chain stays there long enough, temperature shifts and tension are eventually going to turn this into an insurance seminar nobody wants. 2 hours later, Henderson came back with a signed variance. Kevin's signature looked like he wrote it during an earthquake. Locksmith showed up with real equipment. Took him 45 minutes of grinder and heat to defeat that lock. Sparks everywhere. Kevin stood inside with a wet towel pressed against his window like he was in a hurricane. When that lock finally dropped, the chain slackened and came off the pillar. Left just a faint gray scuff on the paint. I coiled my chain, threw it in the back of the beast, and Kevin came outside looking 10 years older and 20 pounds lighter in pure spite. "You're a menace, Mike," he said. I told him I'm a guy trying to make a living. You tried to tow my livelihood. Don't touch another man's tools and don't touch his truck. Then I fired up the beast, that beautiful rattly diesel music, backed her out, and parked her dead center in my driveway like a king setting a crown straight. Before I went inside, I looked at Kevin and said, "Thinking about repainting her." He closed his eyes. "What color?" "Neon orange." Kevin resigned 2 weeks later. Health reasons officially. Last I heard, he moved to a condo in Florida. I hope the HOA there is brutal. He'd probably miss the structure otherwise. Me, I still park the beast in my driveway every night. Legal variance framed in my office. And when the afternoon sun hits Kevin's old porch pillar just right, you can still see that faint gray ghost where the chain sat. My favorite little piece of neighborhood art. So here's what I want to know: when someone uses rules to squeeze a person's livelihood just because they can, is it still keeping order, or is it just bullying with paperwork? And if the only way to stop it is to hit back harder, where do you think the line is between justice and revenge? Drop your take in the comments. Who was right? Who went too far? And if you've ever had a neighbor, HOA, landlord, or petty local tyrant mess with your work, your property, or your peace, I want to hear your story.